What's up, my friends? Oh, what a day. I got my Hawaiian shirt on here, my Mickey Mouse. What was this? Disney Cruise. Anyway, hope everybody had a good day. I was at school today saying goodbye to the seniors. Nice ceremony. I thought that was pretty nice. I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure what it would be like, but I thought it was very tasteful and, a little emotional. Got to see some people, some, seniors that I've worked with for a while as juniors too. So it was good. But we've got some exciting stuff to read tonight. So let's not delay. Let's get into it. Let me wet my whistle. And here comes Stella. She's ready to read too. She's excited to meet number 6. Right, Stella? If you're going to stay, you got to lay down. Because we got to read, okay? Okay, boss? Lay down. Okay. Here we go. Here we go. Chapter 29. How do you know it was me, I ask. She looks to the door. I've been trying to find you ever since 3 was killed, but I'll explain it all to you later. First, we have to get out of here. How did you get in without them seeing you? I can make myself invisible. I smile, the same legacy my grandfather had. Invisibility. The ability to make those things he touches invisible as well. Like the house on Henry's second day of work. How far do you live from here, she asks. 3 miles. I feel her nod through the darkness. Do you have a C-pen, she asks. Yes, of course, don't you? Her weight shifts and she pauses before speaking, as though drawing strength from some unseen entity. I did, she says. She died 3 years ago. I've been on my own ever since. I'm sorry, I say. It's a war. People are going to die. Right now, we have to get out of here, or we'll die as well. If they're in the area, then they already know where you live, which means they've already been there. So it's pointless to try to be secretive once we're once we're out of here. These are only scouts. The soldiers are on the way. They have the swords. The beast won't be far behind. Time is short. At best, we have a day. At worst, they're already here. My first thought, they already know where I live. I panic. Henry is at home with Bernie Kosar, and the soldiers and the beast may already be there. My second thought, her C-Pan died 3 years now. 6 has been alone all that time. Alone on a foreign planet since what? The age of 13, 14? He's at home, I say. Who? Henry, my C-Pan. I'm sure he's fine. They won't touch him as long as you're free. Hey, knock it off. It's you they want, and they'll use him to try to lure you, 6 says. Then shifts her head towards the barred window. We turn and look with her. Speeding around the bend coming towards the school very faintly so that nothing else can be seen is a pair of headlights that slow past the exit, then turn into the entrance and quickly disappear. 6 turns back to us. All the doors are blocked. How else can we get out of here? I think about it, figuring that one of the unbarred windows in it. Look at that. Look at that. You cut me. You little, you know what? Yeah. We can't get through the gymnasium, Sarah says. We can get out through the gymnasium, Sarah says. There's a passageway beneath the stage that opens like a cellar door in the back of the school. Really, I ask? She nods, and I feel a sense of pride. Each of you take my hand, 6 says. I take her right, Sarah her left. Be as quiet as possible. As long as you hold my hands, you'll both be invisible. They won't be able to see us, but they'll hear us. Once we're outside, we'll run like hell. We'll never be able to escape them, not since they found us. The only way to escape is to kill them, every last one of them, before the others arrive. Okay, I say. Do you know what that means, Six says. I shake my hand. I shake my head, excuse me. I'm not sure what she is asking me. There's no escaping them now, she says. It means you're going to have to fight. Ah, there we go. She really clawed me. Yikes. I mean to respond, but the shuffling I had heard earlier stops outside the door. Silence. Then the doorknob is jiggled. Number 6 takes a deep breath and lets go of my hand. Never mind sneaking out, she says. The war starts now. She rushes up and thrusts her hand forward. The door breaks away from the jamb and crashes across the hallway. Splintered wood, shattered glass. Turn your lights on, she yells. I snap them on. A Magadorian stands amid the rubble of the broken door. It smiles, blood seeping from the corner of its mouth, where the door hit it. Black eyes, pale skin, as though the sun has never touched it. A cave-dwelling creature risen from the dead. It throws something that I don't see, and I hear Six grunt beside me. I look into her eyes, and the pain tears through me so that I'm stuck here where I am, unable to move. Darkness falls, sadness, my body stiffens. A haze of pictures of the day of the invasion flicker through my mind. The death of women and children, my grandparents. Tears, screams, blood, heaps of burning bodies. Six breaks the spell by lifting the Magadorian in the air and hurling it against the wall. It tries standing, and Six lifts it again, this time throwing it as hard as it can against one of the walls, and then the other. The scout falls to the ground, twisted and broken. Its chest rising once, then becomes still. 1 or 2 seconds pass, its entire body collapses into a pile of ash, accompanied by the sound of a similar bag of sand being dropped to the ground. What the hell, I ask, wondering how it's possible for the body to completely disintegrate like it just did. Don't look into their eyes, she yells, ignoring my confusion. I think of the writer of They Walk Among Us. I now understand what he went through when looking into their eyes. I wonder if he welcomed death when the time finally came. Welcomed it just to be rid of the images that perpetually played in his mind. I can only imagine how intense they would have been and had become had Six not broken the spell. Two other scouts sweep towards us from the end of the hall. A shroud of darkness surrounds them, as though they consume everything around them and turn it into black. Six stands in front of me, firm, chin held high. She is 2 inches shorter than I am, but her presence makes her seem 2 inches taller. Sarah stands behind me. Both Magadorians stop where the hallway intersects with another, their teeth bared in a sneer. My body is tense, muscles burning with exhaustion. They take deep, rasping breaths, which is what we heard outside the door. They're breathing, not their walking, watching us. And then a different noise fills the hallway, and the Magadorians both turn their attention to it. A door begins being shaken as though somebody is trying to force it open. From out of nowhere, there comes the sound of a gun blast, followed by the school door being kicked open. They both look surprised as they turn to flee. 2 more blasts through the hallway, and both scouts are blown backwards. We hear the approaching sounding of 2 sets of shoes and the click of a dog's toenails. Six tenses beside me, ready for whatever is coming our way. Henry, it was his truck lights that we saw enter the school grounds. He has a double-barreled shotgun I've never seen before. Bernie Kosar is at his side, and he comes sprinting towards me. I crouch down and I lift him off the floor. He looks wildly at my face, and I'm so excited to see him that I almost forget to tell Six who the man with the shotgun is. It's Henry, I say, my C-Pan. Henry comes walking down, vigilant, looking at the classroom doors as he passes. And behind him, carrying the Lorik chest in his arms, is Mark. I have no idea why Henry has brought him along. There is a crazed look in Henry's eyes, one of exhaustion, full of fear and worry. I expect the worst after the way I left the house. Some sort of scolding, perhaps a slap across the face. But he instead switches the shotgun to his left hand and hugs me as tightly as I can, and I hug him back. I'm sorry, Henry. I didn't know this would happen. I know you didn't. I'm just happy you're okay, he says. Come on, we have to get out of here. The whole damn school is surrounded. Sarah leads us to the safest room she can think of, which is the home economics kitchen down the hall. We lock the door behind us, 6 moves, 3 refrigerators in front of it to keep anything from entering. While Henry rushes to the windows and pulls the blinds down. Sarah walks straight into the kitchen we normally use, opens the drawer, and removes a big butcher knife, the biggest butcher knife she can find. Mark watches her, and when he sees what she's done, he drops the chest to the floor and grabs a knife of his own. Excuse me. He rifles through other drawers and removes a meat tenderizer hammer and tucks it into the waistband of his pants. You guys okay? Henry asks. Yes, I say. Aside from the dagger in my arm, yes, I'm fine, Six says. I turn my lights on dimly and I look at her arm. She wasn't kidding. Where the bicep meets the shoulder, a small dagger is sticking out. That is why I heard her gasp before she killed the scout. It had thrown a knife at her. Henry reaches and he pulls it free, and she grunts. Thankfully, it's just a dagger, she says, looking at me. The soldiers will have swords that glow with different sorts of powers. I mean to ask what kind of powers, but Henry interrupts. Take this, he says. Piece of ice, sorry. He holds the shotgun out for Mark to take. He accepts it in his free hand and without protest, staring in awe at everything he is witnessing around him. I wonder how much Henry has told him. I wonder why Henry brought him along in the first place. I look back at Six. Henry presses a rag to her arms and he holds it in place. He steps over and he lifts the chest and sets it on the nearest table. Here, John, he says. Without explanation, I help him unlock it. He throws the top open, reaches in, removes a flat rock, every bit as dark as the aura surrounding the Magadorians. Six seems to know what the rock is for. She takes her shirt off. Beneath it, she's wearing a black and gray rubber suit, very similar to the silver and blue suit I saw my father wear in my flashbacks. She takes a deep breath, offers Henry her arm. Henry thrusts the rock against the gash, and Six, with her teeth clenched tightly, grunts and writhes in pain. Sweat beads across her forehead, her face bright red under the strain, tendons standing out on her neck. Henry holds it there for a near full minute. He pulls the stone away, and Six bends over at the waist, taking deep breaths to compose herself. I look at her arm. Aside from a bit of blood still glistening, the cut is completely healed. No scars, nothing aside from a small tear in the suit. What is that, I ask? It's a healing stone, says Henry. Stuff like that really exists? On Lorien it does, but the pain of healing is double that of the original pain caused by whatever has happened. The stone only works when the injury was done with the intent to harm or kill. And the healing stone has to be used right away. Intent, I ask. So the stone wouldn't work if I tripped and cut my head by accident? No, Henry says. That's the whole point of legacies. Defense and purity. Would it work on Mark and Sarah? I have no idea, Henry asks, and I hope we don't have to find out. Six catches her breath. She stands straight, feeling her arm. The red in her face begins to fade. Behind her, Bernie Kosar is running back and forth from blocked doors and windows, which are placed too high off the ground for him to see out of. but he stands on his hind legs and he tries anyways, growling at what he feels is out there. Maybe nothing, I think. Occasionally, he bites at the air. Did you get my phone today when you were at school? I asked Henry. No, he says, I didn't grab anything. It wasn't there when I went back. Well, it wouldn't work here anyways. They've done something to our house and school. The power is off and no signal penetrates whatever sort of shield they've set up. All the clocks have stopped. Even the air seems dead. We don't have much time, Six interrupts. Henry nods. A slight grin appears when he looks at her. A look of pride, maybe even relief. I remember you, he says. I remember you too. Henry reaches out his hand and Six shakes it. It's good to see you again. Whoa. Damn good, I correct him, but he ignores me. I've been looking for you guys for a while, Six says. Where is Katerina? Henry asks. Six shakes her head, a mournful look. She didn't make it. She died 3 years ago. I've been looking for the others ever since, you guys included. I'm sorry, Henry says. Six nods. She looks across the room at Bernie Kosar, who's just beginning to growl ferociously. He seems to have grown tall enough so that his head is able to peek out of the bottom of the window. Henry picks the shotgun up off the floor and walks to within 5 feet of the window. John, turn off your lights. He says, now, on my word, pull the blinds. I walk to the side of the window and I wrap the cord twice around my hand. I nod to Henry, and over his shoulder I can see that Sarah has placed her palms against her ear in anticipation of the blast. He cocks the shotgun and he aims it. It's payback time, he says. Now! Whoa! I pull the cord and the blind flies up. Henry fires the shotgun. The sound is deafening, echoing in my ears for seconds after. He cocks the gun again, keeps it aimed. I twist my body to look out. 2 fallen scouts are lying in the grass, unmoving. One of them is reduced to ash with the other same hollow thud as the one in the hallway. Henry shoots the other a second time, and it does the same. Shadows seem to swarm around them. Six, bring a fridge over, Henry says to her. Mark and Sarah watch with amazement as the fridge floats in the air towards us and is positioned in front of the window to block the Magandorians from entering or seeing the room. Better than nothing, Henry says. He turns to Six. How much time do we have? Time is short, she says. They have an outpost 3 hours from here in a hollowed-out mountain in West Virginia. Henry snaps the gun open, slides in 2 new cartridges, and snaps it shut. How many bullets does that hold, I ask. 10, she says. He says. Sarah and Mark whisper to each other. I walk over to them. You guys okay? Sarah nods and Mark shrugs, neither really knowing quite what to say in the terror of the situation. I kiss Sarah on the cheek and I take hold of her hand. Don't worry, I say. We'll get out of this. I turn to Six and Henry. Why are they just out there waiting? Why don't they break a window and rush in? They know they have us outnumbered. They only want to keep us here inside, Six says. They have us exactly where they want us, all together, confined to one place. Now they're waiting for the others to arrive, the soldiers with the weapons, the ones who are skilled at killing. They're desperate now because they know we're developing our legacies. They can't afford to screw it up and risk us getting stronger. They know that some of us can now fight back. We have to get out of here then, Sarah pleads, her voice soft and shaky. Six nods reassuringly to her. And then I remember something I had forgotten in all the excitement. Wait, your being here, us being together, that breaks the charm. All the others are fair game now, I say. They can kill us at will. I could see the look of horror on Henry's face, that it had slipped his mind as well. Six nods. I had to risk it, she says. We can't keep running, and I'm sick of waiting. We're all developing. All of us are ready to hit back. Let's not forget what they did to us that day. And I'm not going to forget what they did to Katerina. Somebody we know is dead. Our families, our friends. I think they're planning to do the same thing to Earth as they did to Lorien. And they are almost ready. To sit back and do nothing is to allow the same destruction, the same death and annihilation. Why stand back and let it happen? If this planet dies, we die with it. Bernie Kosar is still barking at the window, and I almost want to let him outside, see what he can do. His mouth is frothing and his teeth bared. Hair standing still down the center of his back. The dog is ready, I think. The question is, are the rest of us? Well, you're here now, Henry says. Let's hope the others are safe. Let's hope they can fend for themselves. Both of you will know immediately if they can't. As for us, war has come to our doorstep. We didn't ask for it, but now that it's here, we have no choice but to meet it. Head on and with full force, he says. He lifts his head and looks at us, the whites of his eyes glistening through the dark. I agree with you, Six says. The time has come. Hello? Are you back for more reading? You need to sit down. Chapter 30. Oh, we're doing fine on time, Stella. We're doing fine. Wind from the open window rushes into the home economics room. The refrigerator is in front of it, doing little to prevent the cold air. The school is already chilly from the electricity bill being off. Six is now wearing only the rubber suit, which is entirely black aside from a gray band slicing diagonally down the front of it. She is standing in the middle of our group with such poise and confidence that I wish I had a Lorax suit of my own. She opens her mouth to speak, but it's interrupted by a loud boom from outside. All of us rush to the windows, but can see nothing of what is happening. The crash is followed by several loud bangs and the sounds of tearing, gnashing, something being destroyed. What's happening, I ask. Your lights, Henry says over the sound of destruction. I turn them on and I sweep them across the yard. They reach 10 feet before being swallowed by the darkness. Henry steps back and he tilts his head, listening to the sounds of extreme concentration. And then he nods in resigned acceptance. They are destroying all the cars out there, my truck included. If we survive this and escape school, it'll have to be on foot. Terror sweeps across both Mark and Sarah's faces. We can't waste any more time, Six says. Strategy or no strategy, we have to go before the beasts and soldiers arrive. She said we can get out through the gymnasium, Six says and nods to Sarah. It's our only hope. Her name is Sarah, I say. I sit in a nearby chair, unnerved by the urgency in Six's voice. She seems to be the steady one, the one who has remained calm under the weight of terrors we have seen thus far. Bernie Kosar is back at the door, scratching at the fridges that are blocking it, growling and whining in impatience. Since my lights are on, Six has a good look at him for the first time. She stares at Bernie Kosar, then squints her eyes and inches her face forward. She walks over and bends down to pet him, and I turn and look at her. I find it odd that she's grinning. What? I ask. She looks up. You don't know. Know what? Her grin widens. She looks back at Bernie Kosar, who races away from her and charges back to the window, scratching at it, growling the occasional bark of frustration. The school is surrounded, death imminent, almost certain, and Six is grinning. It irritates me. Your dog, she says. You really don't know. No, says Henry. I look at him. He shakes his head at Six. What the hell, I ask. What? She looks at me, then at Henry. She emits a half laugh and then opens her mouth to speak. But just before any word escapes, something catches her eye and she rushes back to the window. We follow and, as before, the very subtle glow of a set of headlights sweep around the bend in the road and into the lot of the school. Another car, maybe a coach or a teacher. I close my eyes and I take a deep breath. It could mean nothing, I say. Turn your lights off, Henry says to me. I turn them off, clench my hands into fists. Something about the car outside causes anger within me. The hell with the exhaustion, with the shakes that have been present ever since I jumped through the principal's window. I can't take being confined in this room any longer, knowing that the Magadorians are out there waiting and plotting our doom. The car outside may be the first of the soldiers arriving on the scene. But just but just when we thought but just then a thought pops into my mind. We see the lights quickly retreat from the lot and speed away in a hurry, down the same road they came. We have to get out of this damn school, Henry says. Henry sits in the chair 10 feet away from the door with a shotgun aimed right at it. He is breathing slowly, though he is tense, and I can see his muscles flexed in his jaw. None of us say a word. Six made herself invisible and slipped out to do some exploring. We're just waiting, and finally it comes. 3 slight taps on the door. Six knocks so that we know it's her and not a scout trying to enter. Henry lowers the gun and she walks in, and I return one of the fridges to block the door behind her. She was gone for a full 10 minutes. You were right, she says to Henry. They've destroyed every car in the lot, and they have somehow moved the wreckage to block every door from being opened. And Sarah is right. They've overlooked the stage hatch. I counted 7 scouts outside and 5 inside walking the halls. There was one outside this door, but it's been disposed of. They seem to be getting antsy. I think that means the others should have been here already, which means they can't be far. Henry stands and he grabs the chest and he nods at me. I help him open it. He reaches in and he pulls a few small round pebbles that he sticks in his pocket. I have no idea what they are. Then he closes and he locks the chest and he slides it into one of the ovens and closes the door. I move a refrigerator up against the oven to keep it from being opened. There really is no other choice. The chest is heavy. It would be impossible to fight while carrying it, and we need every available hand to get out of this mess. I hate to leave it behind, Henry says, shaking his head. Six nods uneasily. Something in the thought of the Magadorians getting a hold of the chest terrifies them both. It'll be fine here, I say. Henry lifts the shotgun and he pumps it once, looks at Marks and Sarah. This isn't your fight, he tells them. I don't know what to expect out there, but if this thing goes badly, you guys get back into the school and you stay hidden. They aren't after you, and I don't think they'll care to come looking if they already have us. Sarah and Mark both look stricken with fear, both holding their respective knives with white-knuckled grips in their right hands. Mark has lined his belt with everything from the kitchen drawers that might be of use. More knives, the meat tenderizer, cheese grater, a pair of scissors. We go left out of this room, and when we reach the end of the hall, the gymnasium is past double doors, 20 feet so to the right, I say to Henry. The hatch is in the very middle of the stage. Six says it's covered with a blue mat. There were no scouts in the gym, but that doesn't mean that there won't be any there this time around. So we're just going to go outside and try to outrun them? Sarah asks, her voice full of panic. She's breathing heavily. It's our only choice, says Henry. I grab her, and she is shaking badly. It'll be okay, I say. How do you know that, she says in a more demanding tone than a questioning one. I don't, I say. Six moves the fridge from the door. Bernie Kosar immediately scratching at the door, trying to get out and growling. I can't make you all invisible, Six says. If I disappear, I'll still be nearby. She grabs hold of the doorknob and Sarah takes a deep, shaky breath beside me, squeezing my hand as tightly as she can. I can see the knife quivering in her right hand. Stay close to me, I say. I'm not leaving your side. The door swings open and Six jumps out into the hall, Henry close behind. I follow and Bernie Kosar races ahead of us, a ball of fury speeding away. Henry points the shotgun one way, then the other. The hallway is empty. Bernie Kosar has already reached the intersection. He disappears. Six follows suit and makes herself invisible, and the rest of us run towards the gym. Henry is in the lead. I make Mark and Sarah go ahead of me. None of us can really see a thing and can only hear each other's footsteps. I turn my lights on to help guide the way, and that's the first mistake I make. A classroom door to my right swings open. Everything happens in a split second, and before I have a chance to react, I am hit in the shoulder with something heavy. My lights shut off. I crash straight through the glass display window. I cut the top of my head, and blood runs down the side of my face almost immediately. Sarah screams. Whatever it was that hit me clubs me again, a hollow thud in my ribs that knocks the wind out of me. Turn your lights on, Henry says. I do. A scout stands over me, holding a 6-foot piece of wood that must have been found in the industrial arts classroom. It raises in the air to hit me again, but Henry, standing 20 feet away, fires the shotgun first. The scout's head disappears, blown to pieces. The rest of its body turns to ash before it even hits the floor. Henry lowers the gun. Shit, he says, catching sight of the blood. He takes a step towards me, and then from the corner of my eye, I see another scout. In the same doorway, a sledgehammer raised over its head. It comes charging forward, and with telekinesis, I throw the nearest thing to me without even know what it is. A golden glinting object that speeds through the air with violence. It hits the scout so hard that its skull cracks on impact. Then it falls to the ground and lies motionless. Henry, Mark, Sarah rush over. The scout is still alive, and Henry takes Sarah's knife and thrusts it through its chest, reducing it to a pile of ash. He hands Sarah back her knife, and she holds it out in front of her, between thumb and forefinger, as though she's been handed a pair of somebody's dirty underwear. Mark bends down and he lifts the object I had thrown, now in 3 separate pieces. It's my all-conference trophy, he says, and then can't help but chuckle to himself. It was given to me last month. I stand. It was the trophy case that I crashed through. You okay, Henry says, looking at the cup. Yeah, it's fine. Let's keep going. We rush down the hall into the gymnasium. We sprint across the floor, jump into the stage. I flip my lights on to see that the blue mat being moved away as though of its own volition. Then the hatch is thrown open. Only then does Six make herself visible again. What happened back there, she asks. Ran into a little bit of trouble, Henry says, climbing down the ladder to make sure the coast is clear. Then Sarah Marco. Where is the dog, I ask. Six shakes her head. Go on, I say. She goes down first, leaving only me on the stage. I whistle as loud as I can, knowing full well that I'm giving away my position in doing so, and I wait. Come on, John, Henry calls up from below. I crawl into the hatch, my feet on the ladder, but from the waist up, I'm still on the stage watching. Come on, I say to myself, where are you? And in the split second when I have no choice to give up, just before I drop down, Bernie Kosar materializes on the far side of the gym and comes sprinting my way, ears pinned to the side of his head, and I smile. Come on, Henry yells this time. Hold on, I yell back. Bernie Kosar jumps onto the stage and into my arms. Here, I yell, and I hand the dog down to Six. I drop down, I close and lock the hatch and turn my lights on as brightly as they go. The walls and the floor are made of concrete, reeking of mildew. We have to walk in a low crouch to keep from hitting our heads. Six leads the way. The tunnel is about 100 feet long, and I have no idea what purpose this could have served at one time. We reach the end. A short flight of steps leads to a pair of metal cellar doors. Six waits until everyone is together. Where does this open, I ask. Behind the faculty lot, Sarah says, not far from the football field. Six presses her ear to listen in the small crack between the closed doors. Nothing but the wind. Everyone's face is streaked with sweat, dust, and fear. Six looks at Henry and nods. I turn my lights off. All right, she says, and makes herself invisible. She inches the door up and enough to stick her head out and have a look around. The rest of us watch with bated breath, waiting, listening, all of us racked with nerves. She turns one way, then the other, satisfied we've made it unnoticed. She pushes the door all the way open, and we file out one by one. Everything is dark and silent, no wind. The forest trees to our right, standing motionless. I look around, and I can see the busted silhouettes of the twisted cars piled up in front of the doors of the schools. No stars or moon, no sky at all, almost as though we were beneath a bubble of darkness. Some sort of dome where only shadows remain. Bernie Kosar begins to howl. low at first, so that my initial thought is that it's done for some reason of anxiety only. But the growl grows into something more ferocious, more menacing, and I know that he senses something out there. All of our heads turn to see what he's growling at, but nothing moves. I take a step forward and I put Sarah behind me. I think to turn on my lights, but I know that it will give us away, even more so than the dog growling. Suddenly, Bernie Kosar takes off. He charges ahead 30 feet before leaping into the air and sinking his teeth deeply into one of the unseen scouts, who materializes out of nowhere as though some spell of invisibility has been broken. In an instant, we're able to see them all surrounding us. No fewer than 20 of them will begin closing in. It's a trap, Henry yells and fires twice and drops 2 scouts immediately. Get back in the tunnel, I scream to Mark and Sarah. One of the scouts comes charging towards me. I lift it in the air and I hurl it as hard as I can against an oak tree 20 yards away. It hits the ground with a thud and quickly stands. And hurls a dagger my way. I deflect it and I lift the scout again and I throw it even harder. It busts into ash at the base of the tree. Henry unloads more rounds, the shots echoing. 2 hands grab me from behind and I almost deflect them until I realize it's Sarah. 6 is nowhere to be seen. Bernie Kosar has brought a Magadorian to the ground, his teeth now sunk deeply into its throat, hell ablaze in the dog's eyes. Get into the school, I yell. She doesn't let go. A clap of thunder breaks through the silence and the storm begins to brew. Dark clouds now forming overhead with flashes of lightning and thunder tearing through the night sky. Loud pounding thunder that makes Sarah jump each time one booms. 6 has reappeared, standing 30 feet away, her eyes to the sky and her face twisted in concentration with both arms raised. She's the one creating the storm, controlling the weather. Bolts of lightning begin raining down, striking the scouts dead where they stand, creating small explosions that form clouds of ash that drift listlessly across the yard. Henry stands off to the side, loading more shells into the shotgun. The scout that Bernie Kosar is choking finally succumbs to death and bursts into a heap of ash, covering the dog's face. He sneezes one, shakes the ash from his coat, then rushes off and chases the closest scout until they both disappear into the dense woods 50 yards away. I have this unbearable fear that I've seen him for the very last time. You have to go into the school, I say to Sarah. You have to go now, and you and Mark have to hide, I yell. I look up and I don't see him. I snap around. I catch the sight of him sprinting towards Henry, who is still loading his gun. At first, I don't understand why. Then I see what's happening. A Magadorian scout has snuck up on Henry without him knowing it. Henry, I scream to get his attention. I lift my hand to stop the scout with its knife raised high in the air, but Mark tackles the thing first. A wrestling match ensues. Henry snaps the shotgun closed, and Mark kicks the scout's knife away. Henry fires, and the scout explodes. Henry says something to Mark, and I yell at Mark again, and he sprints over, breathing heavily. You have to take Sarah into the school. I can help here, he says. It's not your fight. You have to hide. Get in school and hide with Sarah. Okay, he says. You have to stay hidden no matter what. I yell over the storm. They won't come for you. It's me they want. Promise me, Mark. Promise me you'll stay hidden with Sarah. Mark nods rapidly. I promise. Sarah is crying, and there's no time to confront her. Another clap of thunder, another shotgun blast. She kisses me one more time on the lips, her hands holding tightly to my face, and I know she would stay like this forever. Mark pulls her off and begins leading her away. I love you, she says, and in her eyes she is staring at me the same way I had stared at her earlier. Before I left home, Ek, as though she may be seeing me for the final time, wanting to remember it is like this last image might last a lifetime. I love you too, I mouth back, just as the two of them reach the steps of the tunnel. And as soon as the words leave my lips, Henry cries out in pain. I turn. One of the scouts has thrust a knife into his gut. Terror sweeps through me. The scout pulls the knife from Henry's side, the blade glistening with his blood. It thrusts down to stab Henry a second time. My hand reaches out for it, and I rip the knife away, and at the last second, so that is only a fist that hits Henry. He grunts, gathers himself, and he presses the barrel of the shotgun to the chin of the scout and fires. The scout drops, headless. The rain starts, a cold, heavy rain. In no time at all, I'm soaked to the bone. Blood leaks from Henry's gut. He's aiming the gun into the darkness, but all the scouts have moved into the shadows, away from us, so that Henry can't get a good enough aim. They're no longer interested in attacking, knowing that two of us have retreated and a third has been wounded. Six is still reaching for the sky. The storm has grown. The wind is beginning to howl. She seems to be having trouble controlling it. A winter storm, thunder in January. As quickly as everything started, it all seems to stop. The thunder, the lightning, the rain, the wind dies, and a low groan begins to grow from off in the distance. Six lowers her arms, all of us straining to listen. Even the Magadorians turn. The groan grows, unmistakably coming our way, some sort of deep mechanical groan. The scout steps from the shadows and they begin to laugh. Despite our killing at least 10 of them, there are many more than before. Far off, a cloud of smoke rises over the tops of the trees as if steam engine is coming around the bend. The scouts nod at one another, smiling their wicked smiles, and reform their circle around us in what is an apparent attempt to get us back into the school. It is obvious that it's our only choice. Six walks over. What is it, I ask. Henry hobbles, the shotgun hanging limply at his side. He's breathing heavily, a gash on his cheek below his right eye, a circular puddle of blood on his gray sweater from the knife wound. It's the rest of them, isn't it? Henry asks Six. Six looks at him, stricken, her hair wet and clinging to the sides of her face. The beast, she says, and the soldiers, they're here. Henry cocks the shotgun and he takes a deep breath. And so the real war begins, he says. I don't know about you two, but if this is it, then this is it. I, for one, he says, well, I'll be damned if I go down without a fight. Six nods. Our people fought back until the end, and so shall I, she says. A mile off, the smoke still rises. Live cargo, I think. That is how they transport them, by oversized semi-trucks. Six and I follow Henry back down the steps. I yell for Bernie Kosar, but he's nowhere to be seen. We can't wait for him again, Henry says. There isn't time. I look around one final time and slam the cellar doors shut. We rush back through the tunnel, up to the stage, cross the gymnasium. We don't see a single scout, nor do we see Mark and Sarah. I'm relieved by that. I hope they are well hidden, and I hope Mark keeps his promise and that they stay that way. When we make it back to the home ec room, I slide the fridge out of the way and I grab the chest. Henry and I open it. Six takes the healing stone and thrusts it against Henry's gut. He is silent, his eyes closed, holding his breath. His face is red under the strain, but not a single sound escapes. A minute of this and Six pulls the stone away. The cut has healed. Henry exhales, his forehead covered in sweat. Then it's my turn. She presses it to the gash on my head, and pain far greater than anything I've ever felt before rips through me. I grunt and groan, every muscle in my body flexing. I can't breathe until it's over. When it finally is, I bend over and I catch my breath for a full minute. Outside, the mechanical groan has stopped. The semi is hidden from view, while Henry closes up the chest and places it back in the same oven as before. I look out the window, hoping to catch the sight of Bernie Kosar, but I don't see him. Another set of headlights passes by the school as before. I can't tell if it's a car or a truck. It slows as it drives by the entrance, then quickly speeds away without turning in. Henry pushes his shirt down, picks up the shotgun, and we move towards the door. A sound stops the three of us in our track. A roar comes from outside, loud, animal-like. We're going a little late tonight, guys. I don't know about you, but this is getting pretty awesome. Oh, and this is the last page for the chapter. We're going to leave off at a good cliffhanger, I think. Oh, Stella. Stella's, I don't know what, she's sitting down here on the ground looking at me. A roar comes from outside, loud, animal-like. A sinister roar, unlike everything I've ever heard before, followed by the sound of metallic clicks and a gate being unlocked, lowered, and opened. A loud bang snaps us all back to attention. I take another deep breath, and Henry shakes his head and he sighs in what is almost hopeless gesture, a gesture made when the fight is lost. There's always hope, Henry, I say. He turns and he looks at me. New developments have yet to present themselves. Not all the information is in. Don't give up hope just yet. He nods in the tiniest trace of the tiniest trace of a smile forms. He looks at 6. A new development that I don't think either of us could have imagined. Who is to say that there aren't more waiting? Then he picks up where I left off, quoting the exact words he spoke to me when I was the one who was discouraged. The day I asked how we could possibly expect to win this fight. Alone and outnumbered, far from home, against the Magadorians. Against the Magadorians, who seem to take great joy in war and death. It's the last thing to go, Henry says. When you have lost hope, you have lost everything. And when you think all is lost, when all is dire and bleak, there is always hope. Exactly, I say. All right. Wow. So, it's going to be close. We might finish the book Sunday night, like I said. We might. All right. Lots of good reading tonight, though. I'm going to run down the news quick. And then do this day in history. So, these protests, guys, over the George Floyd, the murder, or I guess killing of manslaughter, of third-degree murder and manslaughter, right? That's what the police officers are being charged with. These protests have stretched across the country. They're everywhere. And Governor Cuomo today said 2 things, right? He says, number one, I wholeheartedly support protesting. However, I do not support the looting. And, the looting has really become the thing that I think is, and the, I understand protesting, but people are destroying monuments and they're spray painting and painting, and they're just destroying anything they can get their hands on. And that's just wrong. We talked about this a lot last night. Peaceful protests are okay. And there are a lot of peaceful protests happening in New York, in Atlanta, where the news out of Atlanta, these 2 men that have been charged now with murder, they apparently chased a guy down with their trucks. And I guess there's video of the one guy shooting him in the hand, then shooting him in the chest. No, shooting him in the chest, then shooting him in the hand, then shooting him in the chest again. And throwing out some racial slurs as he's doing it. So, it's clear, it's been clear for a while that we have a race problem in this country, and a problem with racism in our country. I was just so horribly shocked. I don't know if any of you saw what happened in Rochester yesterday. A husband and wife, I think kind of young, I'm not sure, were inside their shop, and 5 or 6, it looked like, honestly, it looked like teenagers they all had 2x4s and they were smashing in the windows, trying to get into the shop. And the husband and wife come out to stop them. And they start beating the husband and wife with the 2x4s. The husband runs back in. And the woman, I don't think the woman was taller than 5 feet. I just, this is not that far away, guys, right? This is 3 hours away. Maybe it's time. I think that a lot of people are starting to look at Governor Cuomo and say, Governor, it's time. You've had the National Guard on standby or whatever. It's time to call them up, and it might be. It might be. I think this is, nothing against the police. They are doing every single thing they can, but the police, the sheriffs, the state police are stretched thin dealing with the COVID stuff. They might need some help. They might need some help. And it seems as though, it's been 10 nights in a row of this. When do we do it? And that brings up, the president has threatened the use of the Army and tanks and, the full-on military here to protect from protesters and looting and all this. Former Secretary Mattis has come out and said that President Trump is a threat to our country and a threat to our way of life. And I can't remember the name. A Republican senator has now come out and said the same thing. And things. I think the Republican Party, through all this, ladies and gentlemen, is starting to take some hits here. And I'm not saying the Democrats are doing any better, but I think the president's approval ratings are probably the lowest that they've been since he came into office. And they're certainly not looking so good going into the election in November 3rd. So as of this point, 42.7 million people, 1.9 million new people this week, but 42.7 million people have since March applied for unemployment. So the good thing is that the number of people applying for unemployment new people has decreased. So that's good. I guess it's just a matter of really seeing if that decrease is going to continue. And if things can really get opened up quick enough. And I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. I know today I was in Albany. Lowe's was overrun. We went to BJ's, went shopping for my dad. BJ's wasn't bad. And then, I went to my geek hobby shop, and he said he's had a ton of business. Business is moving. And he said that, some people came in, didn't have masks, and then, they went back outside, they got their masks in their car, and they came in. So that's good, And I'm glad to see that businesses are starting to reopen, but I think it's just going to be, especially like the seasonal business is going to be very interesting, I think, this summer. The thing that I watched, on the news today is that with things opening, but all these protests skyrocketing the number of people, are cases now going to start to skyrocket with it? Who knows? We'll see. We shall see. But it seems like, the coronavirus stuff was headed in a good direction, and now these race problems are springing up, and that could like totally start to make the pandemic come back. And one of the things I know that is also being reported on the news is that regardless, doctors are saying we're gonna get hit again with this. So, and their best guess is that we could see a little bit of a resurge at the end of summer, but more than likely next December we're going to see one. So, what colleges are apparently preparing to do is start the school year and be done like basically right. Usually, what you get in college is like right after Thanksgiving, you get like a solid week and then exams start. And now what their colleges are talking about is like, bam, you go home for Thanksgiving, you study for your exams, you come back, bam, exams, and you're done. Peace out, Cub Scout. Which, cuts the school year down, the semester down by a couple weeks, but, that could help. Certainly can help. Medical schools in New York State have been given the green light to open. The Six Flags hotel thingy there, whatever that is called, the indoor water thing, has now been given a green light to reopen. One of the things that, unfortunately, and I'm interested to see how this plays out, is Tuesday is the school budget votes. And Shenendehowa, the biggest district, and other districts around have said that they're having problems. They're having problems getting enough ballots printed and processed and out to the mail because they've got to go out to the voters. Then the voters have to drop them off or mail them in by Tuesday. Is it Tuesday? Yeah, I think it's Tuesday, June 9th. So, that's, here comes Stella. So that's not good. I don't know what that's going to do if the election results are going to hold or, if there's going to be, if they're not going to let the votes or maybe have to reschedule a vote. I don't know. All right, this day in history, my friends. So on this day in history, in 1876, the first express train goes from New York to California in 83 hours. So the first express train crossing our country, 83 hours. So a little under 3.5 days. On this day in 1896, Henry Ford, and apparently, I don't know if I wonder if this was a typo. The thing that I saw is that at 4 a.m. in the morning, rides his quadricycle for the first time. On this day in 1919, and that's what people always, they say 1919, the 19th Amendment was passed by Congress in 1919, but it wasn't ratified until 1920. So this is the 100th year of the women's right to vote. On this day in 1968, Sirhan Sirhan kills Bobby Kennedy after the California primary, after he wins the California primary, running for as a Democrat in the presidential election. On this day in 1989, we talked about this last night, didn't we? Yes. So in Tiananmen Square, the yesterday in 1989 on June 3rd, the conflicts between the protesters and the Chinese military begins. It's on this day that hundreds of them are killed, and over 10,000 of them are arrested. And then finally, on this day in 2003, the one, the only Martha Stewart is indicted for security fraud. So Martha Stewart, the multi-cajillionaire, is given some insider information, and she sends a fax to have some stock sold. And I think, is it her son-in-law or something like that? And it's like very little in stock that she has sold. And what happens is the fax, somehow the fax gets intercepted or whatever. And, she should have gone to jail for 10 years. And she goes to jail for a year and a half. But God bless America. Right, Stell? God bless America. So anyway, that's our day in history, my friends. And today is certainly this time is such an historic time for a lot of reasons. We thought we had enough to deal with all this corona stuff. And now people across the country are saying, enough is enough. We need to deal with these racial injustices. And I agree. I do agree. But which comes first? That's the question. Can we deal with both at the same time? Do we have it in us? Do we have the resources to deal with this at the same time? Or, do we need to say, let's deal with the corona thing, then the race thing, or vice versa? I don't know. I really don't know. But, again, today was a cool day. Long day. Pretty, the heck is in my pocket? No, a screw. I was fixing stuff at my dad's house. But it was a good day. I thought that what we did today at the school was pretty cool for the seniors. I don't know if you guys saw pictures of it, but I thought it was nice. It was tasteful, and it was emotional. I saw some students that again I've worked with for a couple years, and that I've really come to know very well. I've seen every day, talked to every day, and despite what everybody thinks, I do like you guys. I'm just not a teacher that is. I'm not your friend, but I'm friendly, and I am your friend. But my main goal is not to be your friend. My main goal in teaching is to help you and give you the skills to help you become the person that you want to become. So, so sometimes that's why I'm strict, and that's why I say, hey, I'm going to set the bar up here, and I want to see how close you guys are to getting to it, because that's how I roll, right? That's how I roll. All right, my friends. Well, listen, keep running that marathon. Don't sprint. No need to. We're almost there. We're almost across the finish line. Week and a half. Week and a half. 1, 6, 7, 8, 8.5 school days technically, but we're almost there. Everything for U.S. History and Pig will be due next Friday, and then I'm going to throw that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I'm going to throw some fun, goofy stuff at you guys, and then we'll say farewell. Probably just Monday and Tuesday, and then we'll say farewell on Wednesday. So be good, my friends. Run the marathon. Take your time. We will get there. Take everything one day at a time. one assignment at a time, and finish the year strong. That's what I think is most important. And I think that's what is going to be very important when you look back on this time. You're going to say to yourselves, did I just coast or did I finish strong? And I think if you finish strong, you're going to feel a lot better about yourself than if you just sat back and said, I'm just going to screw off during all this. So, anyways, be good, guys. Have a good night. And Stella and I will see you tomorrow.